Welcome back to our channel, where we uncover remarkable stories from history and unravel fascinating mysteries. In today's video, we're diving into the captivating accounts of the 12 apostles, the closest followers of Jesus Christ, and how they met their ultimate fates. For centuries, their lives and deaths have sparked curiosity and debate, and today we'll explore the intriguing details surrounding their final moments. Have you ever wondered what became of the apostles after Jesus' crucifixion? How did their journeys unfold, and what led to their eventual deaths? Each apostle had a unique destiny, shaped by faith, sacrifice, and unshakable devotion. Before we begin, share in the comments which apostle's fate surprises you the most. Do you believe their deaths reflect the profound impact they had on Christianity? And if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss our upcoming videos. Now, let's embark on this compelling journey through history as we uncover the truth behind the final days of the 12 apostles. Number 12, Simon, called Peter. The Bible does not provide a detailed account of Peter's death, but according to long-standing church tradition, he was crucified in Rome under Emperor Nero. However, in a manner unlike any other, Peter was said to have requested to be crucified upside down. This extraordinary request was rooted in his deep humility. Having once denied Jesus, he believed himself unworthy to die in the same manner as his Lord, Matthew 26:33 through 35, 69 through 75. While this account is widely accepted, it remains a tradition rather than a confirmed biblical fact. What we do know for certain is that Jesus himself prophesied Peter's death. In John 21:18 through 19, Jesus told him, "Truly, truly, I say to you, when you were young, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted. But when you are old, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will dress you and lead you where you do not want to go." These words foreshadowed the kind of death Peter would endure, a death that would ultimately glorify God. Jesus' prophecy also served as a reminder that Peter's journey would not be easy. After Jesus' resurrection, Peter would no longer have his Lord physically beside him. He had once moved freely, but the time was coming when his path would be dictated by forces beyond his control. The phrase, "when you are old," does not necessarily imply that Peter lived to an advanced age. Historical records suggest he was executed about 34 years after Jesus' prophecy, though his exact age at the time remains unknown. The method of Peter's death, crucifixion, was also implied by Jesus' words. The act of stretching out his hands suggests that Peter was nailed to a cross, his arms extended. Some scholars speculate that the Romans also used stocks to bind prisoners in a crucifixion-like pose, but regardless of the exact method, it is clear that Peter's execution was beyond his control. Despite the grim reality of his fate, Peter likely found comfort in knowing that his death would bring glory to God. His life was marked by deep love for Jesus, unwavering faith, and a relentless desire to spread the gospel. His willingness to embrace martyrdom, with the hope of heaven before him, is a testament to his courage, patience, and perseverance. To Peter, dying for Christ was not a tragedy, it was an honor. Number 11. James, son of Zebedee. James, also known as James the Greater, was one of Jesus' closest disciples and one of two apostles named James in the Bible. He and his brother John were known for their fiery zeal. At one point, they even asked Jesus whether they should call down fire from heaven to punish an unwelcoming town, Luke 9:54. Additionally, they boldly requested seats of honor beside Jesus in his kingdom, pledging to follow him even unto death, Mark 10:35 and 39. James is the only apostle whose martyrdom is explicitly recorded in the Bible. According to Acts 12:1 through 2, he was executed by the sword at the command of King Herod Agrippa. He likely beheaded, making him the first of the 12 to die for his faith. Tradition holds that James preached the gospel in Spain before returning to Jerusalem, though historical evidence suggests he died in the Holy City during the early days of the Christian Church. Despite discrepancies in the accounts of his burial, James' legacy inspired one of the most enduring pilgrimages in Christian history, the Camino de Santiago. Every year, hundreds of thousands of pilgrims journey to Santiago de Compostela in northwestern Spain, where his remains are believed to rest. Number 10. John, son of Zebedee. The Apostle John, the brother of James, is known to have faced persecution for his faith. Revelation 1:9 tells us that he was exiled to the island of Patmos, yet the Bible does not provide details about his death. However, tradition offers several intriguing theories. The most widely accepted account suggests that John was arrested in Ephesus and subjected to a brutal execution attempt, being plunged into a cauldron of boiling oil. Miraculously, he survived, and as a result he was banished to Patmos, where he received the vision that became the Book of Revelation. After his release, possibly due to his advanced age, John returned to the region that is now Turkey, where he lived out his final years in peace, making him the only apostle to die of natural causes. Another theory, attributed to Papias of Hierapolis, suggests that John was actually killed by a group of Jewish opponents. However, this claim is debated, as many historians believe Papias was either misquoted or misinterpreted. A more mystical legend proposes that John never died at all, but was instead taken directly to heaven, similar to Enoch and Elijah. However, there is no biblical basis for this claim. Regardless of the exact details, what matters most is John's unwavering dedication to Christ. He fearlessly proclaimed his faith, and his deep commitment is reflected in Luke 9:26, where he boldly refused to be ashamed of his Savior. John fully understood the reality of Jesus' resurrection, and he was willing to lay down his life rather than renounce his faith. His steadfast devotion remains a cornerstone of his legacy. Number 9. Andrew. Andrew, the brother of Simon Peter, was a fisherman by trade and the first disciple called to follow Jesus. Though not part of the inner circle of three, Peter, James, and John, Andrew maintained a close relationship with Jesus and played a crucial role in spreading the gospel. Before becoming a disciple of Jesus, Andrew had been a follower of John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin. It was Andrew who first introduced Peter to Jesus, proclaiming him as the Messiah, even though Peter is often credited with this recognition in the Scriptures. Throughout the Bible, Andrew frequently appears in a secondary role to his brother Peter, perhaps due to being younger or considered less prominent. In 60 AD, Andrew was crucified in the Greek city of Patras. According to the Acts of Andrew, he was bound to an X-shaped cross, now known as St. Andrew's Cross, because he felt unworthy to die in the same manner as Jesus. He remained on the cross for 3 days, continuing to preach during his suffering. Earlier accounts describe the cross used in his martyrdom as a traditional one, but in both versions he was bound rather than nailed. Philip the Apostle is mentioned only a handful of times in the New Testament and shares his name with 3 other Philips in the Bible, which has led to some confusion among readers. Not much is known about Philip the Apostle, but like Peter and Andrew, he came from Bethsaida, a coastal town by the Sea of Galilee. The Bible suggests that some Greek men sought him out, possibly due to his fluency in Greek, indicating that he may have had a better command of the language than his fellow disciples. Philip is most notably remembered for bringing Nathanael to Jesus, as recorded in the book of John. In one instance, Jesus tests Philip by asking where they could buy bread to feed a crowd of 5,000 people. Later, Philip requests that Jesus show them God the Father, to which Jesus responds that anyone who has seen him has also seen the Father. The details of Philip's death, likely occurring around 80 AD, vary. Some accounts claim he died of natural causes, while others suggest he was stoned, beheaded, or crucified upside down. Bartholomew the Apostle remains a mysterious figure, with little information available about him beyond his name. Some suggest he may have gone by another name, and that he had a close relationship with Philip, as indicated in the Bible. Scholars have debated whether Bartholomew and Nathanael were the same person, since Nathanael is closely associated with Philip, while Bartholomew is not mentioned in the Gospel of John. However, others argue that they were distinct individuals. Like most of the other apostles, Bartholomew is believed to have been martyred, though the manner of his death varies across accounts. The most well-known and gruesome version claims he was flayed alive and then beheaded. Artistic depictions of his martyrdom often portray him holding a flaying knife or draped in his own skin, emphasizing the brutality of his death. Other accounts suggest he was beaten, crucified upside down, removed from the cross while still alive, then flayed and beheaded. Or alternatively, that he was beaten unconscious, thrown into the sea, and later beheaded. Though the exact details of his execution remain uncertain, it is clear that he did not die peacefully of old age. Regardless of the precise circumstances, his passing is believed to have been a horrifying ordeal. Matthew, also known as Levi, worked as a tax collector in first-century Judaism, a profession that involved collecting money from fellow Jews on behalf of Rome, a role widely despised as it symbolized Roman occupation. However, when Jesus called Matthew to follow him, it demonstrated that God chooses people from all backgrounds, even those seen as outcasts, to fulfill his mission. Despite being mentioned only 7 times in the Bible, Matthew remains one of the most well-known disciples. According to the Gospels, Jesus approached Matthew at his tax booth and invited him to follow him. Later, Jesus dined at Matthew's house, accompanied by tax collectors and sinners. His participation in this gathering was not to condone immoral behavior, but to show that those deemed unredeemable by society were embraced by God. The circumstances of Matthew's death remain uncertain. While some accounts claim he died of old age, it is more likely that, like most of his fellow apostles, he was murdered. Various sources suggest he may have been beheaded, stabbed, burned, or stoned. Thomas the Apostle appears only briefly in the Bible, and much of what is known about him is fragmented. He is best remembered for his skepticism, which led to the famous incident that earned him the name Doubting Thomas. In the Gospel of John, Thomas expressed doubt about Jesus' resurrection, stating that he needed to see and touch the wounds from the crucifixion to believe. Jesus later appeared to Thomas and invited him to do exactly that, fulfilling the condition Thomas had set for faith. This moment became a cornerstone of the idea that belief can be based on evidence, while also emphasizing the importance of faith beyond physical proof. Tradition holds that Thomas was martyred on July 372 AD in Mylapore, India. According to most accounts, he was speared to death. Unlike the varying accounts of other apostles' deaths, the stories of Thomas's martyrdom are relatively consistent. James, the son of Alphaeus, remains an enigmatic figure in biblical history. His name appears only in lists of the apostles, and little else is known about him except for his father's name. Despite numerous speculations about his identity, none can be confirmed. He is distinct from James, the son of Zebedee, and the Bible also mentions 2 other men named James: James the Just, the brother of Jesus, and James the Less. It remains unclear whether either of them was the same person as James, the son of Alphaeus. Even the early church struggled to distinguish among them. Due to this ambiguity, the details of James, the son of Alphaeus's death, remain uncertain. Jesus' brother James suffered a violent end, having been thrown from a temple pinnacle, beaten with a club, and stoned to death. One tradition suggests that James, the son of Alphaeus, was crucified while preaching in Egypt, while another claims he was stoned in Jerusalem. Regardless of the precise circumstances, it is widely believed that James the Apostle was martyred. Jude the Apostle, also known by multiple names, including Jude of James, Judas of James, Thaddeus, Judas Thaddeus, and Lebbaeus, remains somewhat obscure. Some speculate that he may have been Jesus' brother, but there is no clear biblical confirmation of this. Determining whether the 2 Judes were the same person remains uncertain, making any speculation about Jude's life or death more complex. However, one fact is clear. Jude the Apostle was distinct from Judas Iscariot, and he adopted the nickname Thaddeus to differentiate himself from the notorious betrayer. According to church tradition, Jude the Apostle was martyred alongside Simon the Zealot in what is now Beirut in 65 AD, which at the time was part of the Roman province of Syria. Religious artwork often depicts Jude holding an axe, symbolizing the manner of his death. One account claims his remains were transported from Beirut to Rome in 1665 and placed in a crypt at St. Peter's Basilica, where he shares a tomb with Simon the Zealot. Another tradition suggests that Jude's remains were safeguarded at an Armenian monastery in Kurdistan, remaining there until at least the mid-5th century. A burial container, inscribed with the name Judas Thaddeus, was discovered among several unmarked ossuaries in Israel's Jezreel Valley, and its dating suggests it could be Jude's final resting place, possibly no later than the 2nd century. Simon the Zealot appears in the lists of apostles, but little else is recorded about his life. The exact meaning of his title, the Zealot, remains open to interpretation. One possibility is that he was connected to the Zealots, a Jewish sect advocating revolution and a messianic leader. Another theory suggests that Simon's zeal referred to his deep devotion to Mosaic law or his passionate commitment to Jesus and his teachings. Early biblical mistranslations mistakenly referred to him as Simon the Canaanite, leading to confusion and incorrect associations with Jesus' brother. Some even speculated that he was present during Jesus' first miracle of turning water into wine, though current scholarship disputes this claim. Tradition states that Simon preached in Egypt, but little else is known about his missionary work, and conflicting reports exist regarding his death. The earliest accounts of Simon's martyrdom emerged centuries after his passing, making it difficult to determine the most accurate version. In the 5th century, Armenian historian Moses of Korine recorded that Simon was martyred in the kingdom of Iberia. The medieval collection, The Golden Legend, states that Simon was killed in Persia in 65 AD, while Ethiopian Christians believe he was martyred in Samaria. Other stories claim he was crucified in Britain in 61 AD, or that he was sawn in half. Eastern tradition, however, holds that Simon died of old age in the ancient city of Edessa. Judas Iscariot is primarily remembered for betraying Jesus. He was one of the 12 disciples who spent 3 years following Jesus, witnessing his ministry, teachings, and miracles. As the group's treasurer, Judas abused his trusted position by stealing from their funds. After his betrayal, he experienced deep remorse, but not true repentance. The accounts of Judas's death in Matthew's Gospel and the book of Acts present discrepancies. Matthew states that Judas hanged himself after throwing the 30 pieces of silver into the temple. The priests, deeming the money unfit for the treasury, as it was blood money, used it to purchase a field called the Potter's Field as a burial site for foreigners, a location later known as the Field of Blood, Matthew 27, verses 05 to 8. In contrast, Luke's account in Acts describes Judas falling in a field, his body rupturing upon impact. Acts states that Judas used his ill-gotten money to buy the field, where he then fell headlong, causing his body to burst open, Acts 1:18-19. These differences raise questions. Did Judas die by hanging or by falling? Who actually purchased the field, Judas or the priests? A possible reconciliation of these accounts suggests that Judas hanged himself in the potter's field, Matthew 27, verse 0, and that, forget the words hanging himself, God forsake your tombs with him. Later, as his body decomposed and bloated, the rope or branch likely broke, causing his body to fall and burst open, Acts 1:18-19. Luke does not specify that the fall itself caused his death, but rather that it occurred afterward. Since a mere fall would not typically result in such bodily rupture, it is plausible that decomposition played a role. Thus, Matthew describes Judas's actual cause of death, while Luke emphasizes the gruesome aftermath. Regarding the purchase of the field, 2 explanations can align both accounts. First, Judas may have planned to buy the field before Jesus' arrest, even though no money had yet exchanged hands. After the betrayal, he received the payment but returned it to the chief priests. The priests, considering the money tainted, completed the transaction that Judas had originally intended, effectively making him the initiator of the purchase. Second, when Judas threw the silver into the temple, the priests took it and bought the potter's field themselves, Matthew 27:7. While Judas did not physically purchase the land, the money he provided made him its de facto buyer. Thank you for watching. While we often think of the apostles as a collective group, learning about each one individually offers a deeper perspective. We hope this discussion has provided insight into the Bible's history and key figures. If you found this content valuable, please consider subscribing and clicking the notification icon for future updates. Stay tuned as we continue to explore the Bible's most compelling stories. See you soon.